Remind the viewers out there, if he's indicted in Atlanta this week, as we're anticipating that he will be, we will have the front runner for the Republican nomination for president out on bail in 4 different jurisdictions: New York, Miami, Washington, and Atlanta. What I think Republican voters have to ask themselves is 2 things. First, is he really the guy under indictment in 4 different cases, given the conduct that he committed, someone who can beat Joe Biden or any other Democrat in November 2024? And when are we going to stop pretending that this is normal?
That, of course, is former New Jersey governor and 2024 White House hopeful Chris Christie weighing in on a possible 4th indictment of former President Donald Trump. Joining us now, political reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, Greg Bluestein. He is also a contributor for NBC News and, of course, comes from us live in Georgia. Greg, great to see you. So we know that the DA is starting to present her case. Some witnesses have confirmed they're coming in this week. That surprised a few people. The governor there, he was heard from him. They thought, and he thought, and others too, that an indictment could come this week. What's the latest you're hearing in terms of a timeline? Is that still a possibility, or do we think it slipped a little bit?
No, we are circling Tuesday as the potential day where we could hear about an indictment. We have 2 days of grand jury testimony behind closed doors, starting this morning at the Fulton County Courthouse. And we know of at least 4 witnesses, probably more, who have been called to testify. We have on the record now that the former Lieutenant Governor Jeff Duncan and independent journalist George Chidi have both been called in to testify on Tuesday. So we expect an announcement as early as Tuesday evening about a potential indictment of not only Donald Trump, but also members of his close inner orbit.
And certainly if it ends up not being Tuesday, it could be Wednesday, Thursday, later this week. So if that does happen, what are some charges that are possible against Trump, and who else might face them?
Yeah, we're looking at potential RICO charges involving Donald Trump and some of his allies. We know that Fani Willis is a RICO expert. She's used that law, that state statute here in Georgia, which is more expansive than the federal one, successfully in Atlanta Public Schools cheating trial about a decade ago. We also know that her investigation has spread far beyond Donald Trump to members of the fake electors, to supporters who went down to a rural Georgia county called Coffee County to copy election data, to other members of Donald Trump's legal circle, inner circle, including his former attorney, Rudy Giuliani. And so we expect this to be a pretty broad and sweeping indictment if it actually comes out this week.
And we should note, of course, that this would be a state charge, and in the hypothetical, if Donald Trump were to return to the White House, he would not be able to attempt to self-pardon a state charge, while he possibly could a federal one. We'll see how that stands up in the courts, though. But, Greg, there's another branch of this election investigation, and it's the alleged breach of the voting systems in Coffee County, Georgia. There's been some new reporting about this in the last couple of days. Tell us more about that aspect of this investigation.
Yeah, Coffee County is a rural county in South Georgia, very Republican. And this is not a swing county. This was not a very competitive county whatsoever. But what emerged after the election was that it was found that a team of Trump supporters and data analysts went down to Coffee County's Board of Elections. They were spotted on surveillance video. The visit was captured by surveillance, and they copied election-sensitive voting data, election data, hours. They spent hours behind closed doors there, copying that data. We expect that infiltration to be a significant part of Fani Willis's investigation. It's just one facet of what we expect to be RICO charges that centers on Trump and his plot to undermine and overturn Joe Biden's election victory here in Georgia.
And we just saw some of the footage from Coffee County just now. Significant week in Fulton County, Georgia. We're glad Greg Bluestein, political reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution, could be with us as a preview. We'll talk to you again on Morning Joe a little later, and I'm sure a bunch this week.